In 2015, having lived in Syria and now residing in Greece, she was deeply affected by the refugee crisis. She leveraged the power of social entrepreneurship and tech to generate a more impactful humanitarian response. The result was StartupAID, an impact accelerator supporting and growing grassroots projects into sustainable humanitarian ventures. We've talked to her on the phone. We've talked quite unexpectedly long. And she's also an amazing human. And I'm sure with people like her, like Maurizio, Bernido, we have hope that we can change the world together. Please welcome Ioanna Theodorous. Ioanna, please join me on stage. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Plamen. Wow, that's a big introduction to live up to. First of all, I'd like to say how happy I am that this type of discussion is happening within this framework. You're absolutely right. We should be talking about the refugee crisis through the perspective of technology, because it has the ability to do so much. And it has definitely been a very tough few months, but I'm here to look at this with a little bit of hope and to toe the line between humanitarian aid and tech innovation. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to make the discussion around the refugee crisis bigger. Very simply because we've all seen the images, we've all turned on our TVs and we've seen the muddy camps and the children suffering and the boats and the sinking, and we've all been affected by this. There is a moment when you go to these places, and I've been to Lesbos, I've been to Idomeni, part of my team has been up to Calais as well. There's a moment of absolute powerlessness. And when you come from a background in startups and social innovation, you're so used to this idea that you can do so many things and you can solve so many problems, and technology has proven time and again that it can do that. But then you stand in those camps and you look at these people and you understand what they've been going through, and you really question, what can technology do in these conditions? But you have to overcome that. You have to remember what has been achieved so far by innovation and progress. Keep that at the back of your head and build on it to start something new, right? So in order to start something new, let's see at what we already have. The first framework that we tend to look at is the international organizations and the government structures that are there to respond to the refugee crisis. And they do a lot, especially with data and registration systems. So the UNHCR has a portal. It shows all the data, all the numbers, all the important things that you need to know about the refugee crisis and the movement of the people. And obviously, there are so many organizations involved right now, from the police to the Ministry of Interior to Frontex and the army in Greece, using technology such as Eurodac. The reality, however, is that it's good to have information and it's good to have some systems in place, but there are still holes in these tools. There are still things that need to be done to be effective. And the reality is that I've been in camps and I've seen registration happen by hand. Right now there is a system for refugees to access asylum procedure that's supposed to be working over Skype. When you go to camps where there's no running water and electricity, you start realizing that Wi-Fi is probably not something that you're going to find. So again, what do you do in this situation? And what has been the ray of hope for me, first of all, the first ray of hope that we came across was the mobilization of the tech and the startup community. There are examples such as TechFugees, StartupAID, which I helped set up, but also EmpowerHack, Make Sense, which is a social entrepreneurship platform. They're all mobilizing and bringing all these people with all these very diverse skills to become part of the solution. And they're deploying great tools. The fact is, however, that at this stage, and having been on the ground quite a bit, a lot of these tools have not yet been deployed, or at least they haven't been the game changers yet. They are going to be part of the solution, but right now, there's something else that needs to be done. So again, you sit down and you kind of go, well, is technology failing us? Are we not succeeding in responding to this refugee crisis? And that's where you come across something else, which to me has been the biggest discovery in this situation. And that's what I like to call the low-tech creativity of the grassroots. In this mess, in this constantly shifting situation, where you don't know what's going to happen in a couple of days, let alone in a couple of months, like startup environment and uncertainty of setting up a startup has got nothing on the refugee crisis. We have no idea what's going to happen within 24 hours. And there you start seeing the mobilization of thousands of people that came down to Greece. Volunteers that left their lives back home and made it down to the front line, and they just wanted to help. And that created a lot of energy and a lot of hands to help. But how do you manage all this? And the solution actually has been something that we haven't really talked about. Facebook, WhatsApp groups, Google Maps, Google Drive. The whole response for the international independent volunteers on Lesbos for months was held together by a very good Facebook group called Information Point, a bunch of documents on Google Drive, and a few WhatsApp groups. Search and rescue, deliveries, camp management, everything held together with basically tape and hope. But using these tools that are accessible to all of us, that we all know so well, that are super familiar, they are the blueprints for the type of solutions that the tech community should be building for the long term. These are the cases that we should be looking at as examples of what is needed in a situation that is as tough as a humanitarian crisis. So there are a lot of examples that I could run through, but you can definitely find some of them on our website as well. So there was this response at that level of the tech community. There was a response of the volunteers. One other thing that technology has been very, very good at is awareness and helping with integration. The storytelling that has come through our social media, that has come through all the videos, all the images that have been shared, have really allowed to tell the story of these people, what they are going through, and that is preparing the ground for integration, because we start feeling empathy. They're not just a mass. These people are not just a bunch of, they're not one thing. They have their stories, they have their different reasons for running away from whatever they're running away. And things like Cloud Over Sidra, which I really recommend you take a look at, allow us to understand their hardships and their journey. The other thing that has been fantastic is something that has already been referenced, and is the tools that are being built for integration. And there the solution can be a little bit more sophisticated. They don't have to be rough and tumble and being built on the fly, because there's a little bit more time there to build something. And things like Moni, which allows for refugees to start planning their lives on the level of financial management. There are platforms that allow them to develop skills, such as Chiron or Refugees on Rail, helping them re-enter normalcy, in a sense. And these tools are going to make a huge difference in the long term by how they integrate our society. But the situation and the reality is that migration is not going away. There's 60 million people displaced all over the world right now. We saw the numbers shifting from Greece to Italy in the past couple of weeks. Even if the Syrian conflict is resolved, the next thing that we will see will probably be related to climate change. So this is something that we have to learn to deal with. So the question is, how can we take it further? And again, technology has a role to play there. First of all, it's an incredible enabler. The importance of being able to deploy Wi-Fi and energy and access to electricity really quickly is super important. And there are organizations that are doing that. Some of them are NGOs, like Disaster Tech Lab, but we're also slowly seeing the larger international organizations, such as the ICT cluster of the UN World Food Programme, taking this role of being an infrastructure rather than just rolling out their own program. So they can set up the Wi-Fi access and electricity, and then the local communities and the various NGOs can step in and be allowed to thrive and operate due to that infrastructure. So this is the first big role of technology. And the second one is to look at what we've learned in the past 6 months. Look at those blueprints and start creating solutions that respond genuinely on the ground. start looking at how we can borrow from different sectors and be as interdisciplinary as possible, and not necessarily only look at the final product that has to be digital and technological. It can be a tool within the process that increases our ability to deal with a situation. Just putting Doodle or the volunteer planner into a small NGO makes them able to deal with so much more work than you can possibly imagine. So I think technology has a role to play in that situation, a very important one, actually. It is up to us to step up and take that role, because, as I said, this is about creating a wider conversation. Each and every one of you has the skills and the know-how required to create tools in humanitarian innovation. It's up to us to step up and become part of that solution, and make this not just about a few people that got mobilized and did something for the refugee crisis, but about all the know-how and the ability that technology and innovation have given us to respond to humanitarian aid in general, to start dealing with the refugee crisis and migration in a way that is efficient and brings back dignity and humanity into this process. As I said, it is not a problem that is going away, but for the first time in our history, we have the tools and the know-how to actually deal with this in a way that's effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ioanna. Thank you for joining.